So welcome to the webinar, Easy and Efficient Immediate Digital Dentures. The lecture is being presented by Jean Peterson, MS, CDT, and we're going to begin shortly. And with that, I get to introduce Jean Peterson, MS, CDT, Director of Technical Development and Learning at Stern Gold. With over 35 years of experience, Jean has an extensive and diverse background in the dental industry, including R&D, clinical, and dental laboratory workflows, production, and management. After owning and operating a full-service dental laboratory for 18 years, he spent almost a decade with a leading digital denture and technology company. A pioneer and subject matter expert in digital dentures, Jean has written and co-authored research and white papers on this and other technical subjects. And tonight it is our honor to have him on our platform today. And I get to say, take it away, Jean.
Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate it very much. Thanks for having me. I appreciate NDX and the world's greatest webinar host. And Jessica, thank you for your kind words, and we will get started. So, as Jessica mentioned, my wheelhouse is digital dentures, and I've been doing research on digital dentures for about 20 years now, developing softwares, developing workflows, and it's been a passion. I was at the tip of the sword way back in the early days of this, around 2010, 11, and I've been able to participate in there and help set the standard of a lot of the things that we do in digital dentures. And it's both a pleasure and it's kind of scary sometimes because people put you down for being at the tip of the sword, for having new ideas and creative ideas. So we've come a long way in the last 15 years, 12, 13, 14 years in digital dentures, and we got a long way to go. There's a lot of discussion about digital dentures, and you would think that there are a lot more being done. I mean, but in reality, it's a small percentage of digital dentures are being done, and even a small number being printed, because the printing is the big thing now. But they're important. They're going to be state of the art someday, just like CEREC was, 25, 40 years ago now, when they first came on the market. Nobody ever thought they would become standard of care, but now digital dentures are quickly becoming the way to go because of its efficiency, and we'll talk about that. Their workflows, the consistency, and things that you can achieve by creating a digital denture. Because who would have thunk that we could have done that? Who would have thunk it? I mean, I always like to say that. I mean, it's one of those last things in dentistry that we had to revolutionize and make digital. And it was like putting socks on our hands to do something very intricate, because we knew how to do it. We just had to do it with a computer just for fun. And a lot of technicians were saying, well, why do I have to do it that way if I know how to do it a better way and I can probably produce a better project? Well, that was true. I'm going to say in the old days, 15 years ago. And the same thing with the clinicians. The clinicians were the same of the same opinion that, my gosh, we know how to do this. We've been doing it for 100 years this way. Why do we change? Well, we change for a lot of reasons, and hopefully tonight we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about some of the reasons we change, and tonight we're going to talk specifically about immediate dentures and the role of immediate dentures. And we know how important immediate dentures are in practice and for the public at large, and how much of an impact immediate dentures has in your practice. Not talking about the digital aspect of it. So now we're going to try to bridge that gap from the conventional to the digital. As far as immediates go, and I just want to I give these stats because they're very sobering as far as where the numbers are today. This is as of 2024. This data I try to keep as current as possible, and it's between 15 and 19% of the population are edentulous and are in need of some type of edentulous treatment. That in America, that's 42.5 million people. And then worldwide, that number on average is about the same, even though there are pockets and geographic regions that are probably higher than that. But about 10,000 new baby boomers coming on every day that are going to require that type of treatment. Ages 18 to 34, 3% of folks wear some type of prosthetic. 35 to 44, 16%. Your sweet spot is ages 45 to 55. You got about 29% on up to 64 to 51%. So that's that big group that we're looking at. And then obviously as the populations get older, the oral system fails. So that's where we start looking at a lot of different treatment opportunities with those who can't afford other treatment options. So for those folks that cannot afford implants or can't tolerate implants for whatever reason, dentures might be the way to go. And the number of women versus men. This is always interesting that more women have dentures than do males. So how many of our patients are actually, how many of these patients that we're talking about are immediate? I mean, they mostly start as immediate patients. If you think about it, I mean, they usually have to lose their teeth at some point in time. So it's important that we understand the workflows for immediate dentures, because the ability to take somebody who is probably in a terminal state orally, and they're probably in a lot of pain, discomfort, infection, poor health because of that. What can we do to immediately try to improve that? And the best thing we can do is get teeth out if they're otherwise hopeless. And that really applies to a lot of patients. And the quality of life can improve dramatically by some fairly straightforward and simple procedures. Why immediate dentures? Well, we can allow the patients to heal and get more healthy. We can let that infected, that pathology in their mouth that's caused their teeth to fail for whatever the reason, allow them to heal and hopefully improve their overall health, because we know that how poor oral health affects systematically the human body. They can maintain aesthetics immediately in the short term, and they can maintain function. They want to eat. People need to eat, although people can figure out how to eat without teeth. They first thing, if you ever, when you attend these full mouth extraction appointments, first thing they're worried about is, well, I don't have any teeth in my head, and how am I going to eat? And as painful as it is, and as miserable as that first week is, they go home and eat. They learn how to eat because they have to. So immediate dentures and the way that they're made are very, very, it's a very, very important part of your practice. So everything is going digital. And I mentioned that in the opening, that, everything really is going digital, or it has gone digital. And we're just really keeping up with it now. So how do we do that? We just got to hang on, because it's changing so fast. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to talk about some of the materials involved with digital dentures, but the materials especially are changing more rapidly than we can even keep up with from a literature standpoint and a research. In fact, we do research and it's almost antiquated by the time we publish it, if not already done so. So it's going really fast. Can an immediate denture be a digital denture? Of course it can. Okay, so I want to talk about why do we go digital in the first place? So I'm going to reach back in my pocket and I'm going to talk about digital dentures in general, and then hopefully we can understand the value of them and see where now we can adapt those principles to conventional dentures that move into digital and now into immediate dentures, because it really all makes sense. And we have the tools now that we can do this. Early on, in the early days of digital dentures, we were doing immediates, but it was pretty clunky. We learned how to digitally extract teeth and make a viable record. Learn how to do the alveoplasty or bone bonification with bone reduction guides, and create a situation that is actually much more practical for the patient. It's actually better for the patient because we can better prepare for the actual day of surgery and insertion. I mean, I've come from the old school. I've been doing dentures for 30 years, and we started with a stone model, and we'd grind off where the teeth were, and we'd make a set of wax rims and send them back to the doc, and we'd make a denture. And whether or not it fit well didn't matter. That gum cover, and I say that with all the love in my heart, because I made a lot of gum covers that were literally just that. Because why? Well, because of lack of room. The aesthetics are questionable a lot of times in immediates. But in the digital world, we can prevent some of that. Okay, and you can give the patient a better initial outcome for that time that they're healing and when they need to be relined and when we go to final. So digital, why do we do it? Well, in general, digital dentures, it streamlines the workflow. It's more accurate. We know that from many studies that have been done on the accuracy of milled dentures and printed dentures, and the increased efficiency that's enabled that enables you to present to your office and your practice. And that's, you talk about the accuracy and the repeatability. Well, that applies to final dentures more than it does immediate, because obviously things change drastically in the mouth with an immediate denture, and we'll address that. But it all starts with a digital record that we begin with, and that follows through the process. So what is our goal? Make things easier or faster, easier, and more affordable. And it generally is a given that in the right situation, where you have the right clinician or technician that knows the technology, they absolutely can save time and make their life easier, and hopefully make it more affordable in the process by going the digital route. And that is across the board. That's not just talking about dentures. That's talking about all of the digital processes. That's why everything's digital now, because we know that these characteristics apply to all digital processes. All right. So we talked about this. The digital denture revolution has come. It's evolving, and it's moving faster than we will ever know. And the takeaway from tonight's discussion for the next 40 minutes is, where did digital dentures come from? Today's digital denture transition from conventional to digital. And the reason I want to talk about this is because you need to understand that, at least summarily, the concepts of digital dentures to be able to apply the ideals and workflows of immediate dentures, because it's gonna click in your head and you're gonna say, wow, this makes total sense. If I can do a regular digital denture, I know how to make an immediate, this is a no-brainer. And I don't mean to oversimplify it, but it's true. Not much changes in the workflows. I mean, the principles still apply that you learned in dental school or you learned in the lab. All of these things apply, and you need to bring with you this knowledge, this skill base to create a good digital denture. We're going to talk about the digital denture workflow. We're going to talk about how to ensure success, how to ensure that digital denture is going to stand the best chance of going in the mouth and being a successful denture. We're going to talk about the immediate digital denture workflow. And that's one of the reasons you're here tonight. Communication about the information, the digital setup, current state of the software, a little bit, materials, equipment, and we're going to wrap up talking about designing some immediate digital dentures for you. All right. So how did the digital denture revolution begin? Well, it began back in the early 90s, early to mid 90s, with a few researchers, and it kind of came to its peak around 2010 to 2012. Dr. Charles Goodacre and his colleagues came out with an idea of, well, how can we digitally arrange teeth on a computer and create a file that can mill or otherwise manufacture a prosthetic base where these teeth can go in and we can make a denture. And their proof of concept came true. They joined forces with a couple of different companies, and over a couple of year time period, and came out with the first commercial digital dentures. And it was an idea where something could be printed. We've been printing for a long time, but they took this idea of lithography or stereolithography as basic printing, and they were able to create a simple algorithm and software code that would place teeth on a screen in a CAD situation, and be able to incorporate that into a digital base that was milled or printed at the time. So we're going to talk about the difference between milled and printed towards the end of the presentation, but this became true. This became a possibility. And again, what I mentioned before, people were going, why do you want to do this? And we know how to do this. We know how to make a denture the right way. And we were run out of the room. And we were run out of the room by people, by many, many credible and famous clinicians and technicians, and said, this is never, ever going to work. Well, we're 15 years later, 16 years later, and we're making it happen now. And it's the talk of the town. I give a lecture every year at the National Denturist meeting, and one of the groups that that we focused on early on in 2011 and 12 were the denturist group up in Canada. Lots of denturists up there, and they pretty much run the denture market and own the dental world up there. And they said, there's no way. They tried a few cases. There's just no way we're going to do this because, we're too good of a clinician and too good of a technician to say that a computer can make it better than I can with my skill set, and I can make judgment calls. Well, they literally ran us out. They ran us out and said, this is not going to happen. Next group we went to is the prosthodontists in America, and same kind of reaction. This is never going to work. And but look at us now. Last year when I spoke at the National Denturist meeting, over half of the presentations were on digital dentures, believe it or not. So they've come around. And there are a lot of companies now that make digital dentures where there was just one or two to begin with. Now there's 20 different ways to make a digital denture via different softwares and many, many more manufacturing methods. I'm talking about companies that represent printing and milling, that it really is, whether we like it or not, it really is the talk of the town. It's really the state of the art discussion of removable, but the numbers are rising on how many dentures are actually done because the number is relatively low still. People are actually making digital dentures, and that's going to change with time because fewer technicians are being trained now to make dentures, to fabricate dentures, or to do any kind of dental work for that matter. And I being a technician, this is very close to my heart because I want to be able to pass on that legacy. But the problem is a lot of the great technicians are going away by attrition, and there's just nobody coming up behind them to do that quality work. Because I'm not going to lie, a handmade denture is still much more beautiful and more aesthetic than anything that we can do digitally. And this is a guy that makes digital dentures all the time. And having made thousands of these, knowing the range of digital dentures that can be made by the manufacturing process, to say that you can ever do it as good as a person, well, that still remains to be seen. Okay, and I agree with that. But the problem is we just don't have anybody to do it. And I think as time goes, plus you add in the fact that fewer clinicians are being trained well in dental school in their pre-doc years to make dentures, if they're being required to make any dentures or a few dentures or some a lot. The level of training is lacking as well, and that's concerning because somebody needs to be able to take on that. I mean, whoever is going to be able to do dentures removable in the future, they're going to own the world because those patients, those 42.5 million patients are not going away. They're still going to need treatment, and not everybody's going to want implants. And the irony is when we teach implants, the first question I ask in an implant course is, what do you know about dentures? They want to come in and they want to learn how to do all in four. Well, I say, okay, let's talk about denture occlusion. Let's talk about where to put your teeth and prosthetically designing your cases. It's like deer in the headlight. They don't know, and they panic because, oh crumb, maybe I only did one case in school, or maybe I haven't done any since, or maybe I hate doing dentures and I send them down the street. Well, there's a huge profit opportunity. There's a huge revenue stream for dentures, obviously, based on those numbers, as you could imagine. And if we send them all down the street, we're just giving away that potential revenue. So, a long story there. I mean, that's kind of a soapbox that discussion that basically says, where are we going digital dentures? At first it wasn't going to be something we ever needed or could do, but now it's going to be needed, and we have to embrace it. And it's getting better every day. So research is going on, and the softwares are getting easier. They're getting more they're getting more sophisticated. The materials are getting better every day. And with one piece milling now, and or monolithic printing with color and internal characteristics like Stratasys. I mean, the world's, with three other companies coming out in the very, very near future, they're going to be doing the same thing with their printing technology. So it's changing and it's exciting. It's an exciting time, and I hope I stay around long enough to keep enjoying this, because this is going to go a long way. I mean, this is going to become just like in the early days of CEREC. I worked on the very first CEREC machine that came to the United States on a beta test back in '92, and we thought that was a miserable, ugly, terrible machine that we would never use on our enemies. And come to find out, CEREC now is the state of its standard of care. So it took a little bit longer for that to get there, but this is going the same direction. So just be prepared. Okay, enough of me. All right, so it started in 2011, at least the race, okay, started in 2011 in Scottsdale, Arizona, with two companies going to the ACP meeting, thinking that they had the same corner on the market. Both of these companies came thinking they're going to introduce digital dentures and they're going to own the market, and they were the first to be there. Well, lo and behold, neither one of them knew the other was there. And they both presented at the conference and said, we're here, we're doing digital dentures. And between Avident and Denka, the question still remains, who was first? I mean, I think arguably you can make arguments for both, as far as what was truly a fully digital denture. And I'm going to say that with quotes, and I'll tell you why in a second. Or what was part digital and part conventional. But it all started in 2011, and now we've got 20, 30 some companies that have the ability to create a digital denture through their software, workflows. So that's where it all started, from somebody's idea, early mid 90s to 2011, thinking all this stuff up, finally getting the guts to do it, put the money into it, and say, yeah, we can do it. It took a lot of courage to do that, and it was a lot of fun doing that. I was actually part of one of these companies in a startup, and I'm proud of my days there because I learned a lot, and I was able to experience a lot while I was there, as far as the advancement of the product and what we did wrong and what we assumed that could be done, and what we knew had to change so it could be done better. Because we started this, we thought we had the magic denture kit, okay, and we thought that every person, no matter how much experience they have, we're going to pick up this kit, get it for free, or pay a little bit of money for this kit with this record making system, and voila, a denture was going to pop out of the box. Well, we learned the hard way that wasn't the case. Guess what we found out? We found out that every bit of knowledge that needed to be learned or understood to make a denture the old way needed to be understood for this. Even though we were doing it with a computer, we still need to have the principles. And if you didn't understand the principles, how are you going to make a record-making system work, i.e. a central relation or interocclusal record device? And I'll talk about those. So we learned a lot. And we learned that, well, maybe the patient's existing denture is a good record. And we can start with that. And thus we spawned the term reference denture. And that's being used by pretty much every company out there now as a way to make a denture. And it's very effective for somebody who does need a lot of changes, and somebody that maybe just needs a little bit of a wash in their denture to improve the fit, maybe improve the aesthetics. It's a perfect 2-appointment solution to a removable problem. And you can't do that. Conventionally. So here we are. We're in the middle of this big race now, and I do have this slide here. This was an initial, of all the companies that were out there represented originally, and there's more now. I quit keeping up with this because too many companies were on there and available to make digital dentures. And these companies manufacture, they have software, they have materials, and it's just it's its own industry. I mean, what we did in 2011 is we created a new industry, and it's been a lot of fun. So what defines a digital denture? Is it the software? Is it the hardware? All right, well, is it the materials? Or is it the materials that we use? Or is it the workflow? I would submit that it is more about probably choosing your material of choice, i.e. the quality level that you want to pursue. And then, it's about how to make the denture, about what do I put into that? What are the inputs that I got to put? What's the communication I need from, as a technician, from the doctor to make that perfect denture? And we'll talk about that. But at first, as far as materials go, is it milled? Is it bonded? Is it monolithic? Is it printed? Okay. Is it printed and printed? I'm talking about teeth and base. Is it any combination of those? We talk about monolithic. What's monolithic mean? I'll talk about what I believe monolithic truly means here in a second. The advantages of digital denture is that they're efficient. It's more accurate. It's repeatable. It's predictable, because that's one of the reasons we do digital. It's scalable. You get the permanent digital file that the patient can, if they lost their denture, they could call it and say, "Hey, I lost my denture, and I need a new one." I always give the story of my mother, who was one of the very first patients with a digital denture, and we made that for her in 2012, 11, late 2011. And very, very famous clinician made it for her that was a prosthodontist and said, "This is never going to work." But guess what? We made her a 2-appointment denture, and it worked. We moved forward about 5 years later, and she fell. And she fell down the stairs, had to call the ambulance, lost her denture in the ambulance, called me up from the hospital to say, "Hey, I'm in the hospital. Oh, yeah, by the way, I lost my denture. Can you make me a new one?" And they said, "Sure." We had her another one in the mail the next day. So that's the beauty of the permanent digital record. Couldn't have done that with conventional denture. True story. True story. Disadvantages, there is a learning curve, obviously. The learning curve, I'm going to say, is both digital and conventional. So you still need to understand what you're doing conventionally to make a denture. And it's important that if you're not familiar with the denture principles that you once learned, to get a course and to find a course that'll refresh your memory and talk about those important principles of making a proper interocclusal record, the importance of making border molded impressions, accurate impressions. Do I set my vertical before I take my bite? Simple questions like that. I mean, that could be the disaster of your whole case right there if you don't know that simple point. I'm just saying as an example, if you're not sure of denture principles, go back and take a quick course. And there are a lot of them. Well, there are a few of them out there that you can get, fewer than before, but they're still there. But there's a learning curve still. Okay. Making the transition, that could be a personal thing. Maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you're saying there's no way that I want to waste time, or the skill level is not going to be there. I can't do it. That might be a problem. The business model might not work. You may not want to buy a printer. You may not want to have to pay what could be a little bit more for a milled digital denture, a premium digital denture, because really printed digital dentures could be a lot cheaper. I mean, they're very much more affordable. In fact, you can give somebody 2 or 3 dentures at once. The time-proven workflows that you got to overcome, and that's begin back to learning curve. Material deficiencies, what the materials are, how they're limited, both in aesthetics and material properties, mechanical properties. It's so fast to keep up with the emerging technologies, and how much it's going to cost. If you already have a printer in your office and you want to do it yourself, then that's a good thing. If you're milling somehow, then throw it in the mill, go home at night, and come back in the morning and it's done. But some of the packages could be kind of expensive, which they need to translate to the customer as well. So you need to make sure your pricing's right, because the last thing you want to do is not charge for what you have to pay for to get a digital denture. Because like I said, if you go a premium milled denture, it could be kind of pricey. Could be on the borderline of what you probably paid for a really, really well-made conventional denture. All right, do I print? Do I mill? Which system do I use? These are questions you need to ask yourself. Is it going to work for me? Is it going to be too hard? Is the transition going to be too much of a hassle? what am I leaving behind? What do I need to make? What do I need to make the change? I would just say do it. If you think it's time, if the rest of your practice is digital, then just consider this the next step in that process of converting your office to digital, is going to the digital. Because if you've got a scanner, which most offices have an intraoral scanner now, you're going to be set for what you need to make a digital denture, and especially in immediate. So just keep that in consideration. So the digital workflow for dentures is the systems, the records. You have the CAD, the software, the CAM, the manufacturing techniques, the materials. We look at what it does, what the work steps, what the workflow is for a conventional denture. And these probably look very familiar to you, these steps. This could require up to 5 or 6 visits, maybe 8, depending on how you do it, how many try-ins you have. But it starts with a final impression, and you go to a model, you do a set of wax rims, you do a setup, you do try-in or 3 or 4. I don't know how many you do. I mean, if you have a good technician and you have a good initial record, then you maybe don't need a try-in. Maybe not. And see if you're listening for what I said there. Maybe you don't need a try-in, because I'm going to tell you something here in a second that's very interesting. Then you process it and you come out with a denture, and that could be anywhere from 5 to 8 appointments traditionally. Now, what's different between this and the digital process? Well, all these steps are important. So what do I need to take away from these things? You can still make a crappy denture this way. Okay, if I don't make a good final impression, if I don't border mold it correctly, and I don't have good adaptation to the tissue, I'm not going to have a good fit. That means I'm not going to have a good model. Are they using good stone, or is it distorted? My wax rim, very, very important step. I'm just going to tell you now, my spoiler is, make your try-in or make your record appointment your try-in. Get as much information as you can from that record appointment, i.e. a wax rim. Why can't you get your midline, your incisal edge, your horizontal plane of occlusion, your tooth size, your gingival height? Why can't you get all of those things in that record? That's what you're supposed to do. That's what it's for. A lot of times it's not captured. And so what you'll do is, well, I'll just fix it on the try-in. Why waste that step? And that's valuable time in the chair. Don't do that. Take this time and try to use that time effectively, and get that information correct in the record appointment. Then everything else will fall into place. And that's especially correct in the digital world, because it's really important here to understand that, garbage in, garbage out in the digital world. Does that apply to this? Yes. But it's even more important in the digital, because you're expecting more. You're expecting that accuracy. You're expecting that efficiency. So if you don't do what you need to do up front, you're going to suffer on the back end. So the digital workflow isn't much different. It's going to be a scan or an impression that you scan and you digitize something. So you have a record, okay, you get a bite, you're going to put that into a software, you're going to put teeth on it, you're going to have that setup, and the record in your design file. You're going to see it, and you're going to be able to place teeth where it needs to be, where they need to be, where that midline is, where the incisal is, what your plane needs to be. Okay, all the vertical and horizontal planes need to be. So you're going to see that in the digital, on the 3D screen. You may or may not need to go to a try-in. Okay, and you're going to say, well, I'd never do a denture without a try-in, and I get that, because I've been there and done that countless times. Okay, but I'm saying that if you take the time and you get over the learning curve, and you realize that, hey, this does work if I take more time up front, then I can eliminate an appointment, and I can do a 2-appointment denture. We proved this with one of the biggest DSOs in the world, where we did 86 offices. We beta tested them, and we got them, and they averaged 3 to 4 dentures. And after they did 3 to 4 dentures, they said, now we're done. We don't need to do the try-in anymore, because we'd print them a monolithic try-in. Now you're going to say, well, that's for the patient and they can be confident and everything. Yeah, that's true. But you're going to figure out a way to show the patient that the information that you're gathering is going to work. And it's a confidence thing. I get it. And sometimes you're just going to need to have that try-in for a high dollar case or something. Do it. By all means, do it. I'm not saying don't do it, but in a lot of your day-to-day cases, your everyday, complete cases, single arch cases, reference denture cases, there's no reason these shouldn't be a 2-appointment denture, just like a crown and bridge appointment. Okay. So how to ensure success? It's all about the records. Okay, and this is probably nothing new if you understand where we're going with the the principles of dentures. So you got fundamental keys to ensure success. One is accurate final impression. Two is accurate interocclusal record and reference. I don't really care how you make these records as long as they're correct. And I would just say, whatever you do best, do it. Whatever you feel more comfortable doing, do it. Because if we try to push you into a technique that you're not used to or you're not comfortable with, there's a potential for error. So just remember that. Whatever you do well, go ahead and do it. But in that record, whatever it is, we want to make sure we capture the correct CR, the OVD, the vertical, the canine position, gingival height, lip support, incised ledge, and midline. Make sure that record, whether it's a wax rim, whether it's a duplicate denture, whether it's an existing denture, whether it's an immediate case that we're going to talk about, make sure that record reflects what we are going to put into that final denture. Oh, you have your horizontal plane of occlusion as well. So again, impressions, don't care. Don't care how you do it, as long as you are making an accurate final impression. If you can use alginate and get good borders that aren't overextended, do it. Because made a lot of dentures out of great alginate impressions. It's one of the most accurate materials out there as long as it's used correctly. You can do a custom tray, you can use stock trays, you can use border molding compound, whatever your technique is, whatever your material is, polyether, if you're using PVS, whatever materials you're comfortable using, go ahead and use it. If you like polysulfide, use polysulfide, whatever you want to use. If you are comfortable using it, use it and produce a good final impression, because the accuracy of that impression is going to translate directly into your digital denture. All right. The interocclusal record, the same thing. What is that going to look like? Well, it could be a wax rim, as long as you've taken the time to get these things across the bottom. You could have a wax rim with a wash in it. You could have a wax up, some modified try-ins like this BTI, this Wagner try-in. This is actually a modified. It's got teeth and with wax here in the front and the posterior set in the blocks. So you can set your vertical and create your aesthetics here. It's a very nice technique, but again, it's a third visit. A duplicate denture. Reference dentures. I love reference dentures. Writing a paper on that right now. And reference dentures is a viable technique. It works. The data shows this. So consider that. It's not for every patient, but a majority of your cases, my conclusions are going to be that a majority of your cases are absolutely, they should be done this way. Why waste time trying to make a wax rim if you don't need to? Okay, it's an extra expense. It's an extra visit. It's not needed. So in the right situation, do that. Okay, reference. Again, what do we see here? We see CR, we see vertical, we see midlines, planes of occlusion, gingival height, we see the teeth, we know where our canines are. We see all those things that you learned in school, okay? And we know that we know that those principles are going to be applied to that record and then be translated into the digital denture. Okay. Record making techniques that are from scratch. So these are the types of things that I mentioned that are tough to get into if you're not used to making dentures, okay? Or if you only do one a year, maybe you ought to consider not using one of these, because these work very well. So these are record-making devices for edentulous patients, starting from scratch. You've got the centric tray from Ivoclar, you've got the Avident AMD, the Denka trays from Denka, and you've got the BD keys from Vaultic. And these are great techniques to use if you're starting from scratch, but you need to know how they work. You need to understand how Gothic arch tracing works, how to capture CR, how to get your correct vertical. Those are the things that need to go into this, because this is the thing that I mentioned earlier. It's not a magic denture kit. So as long as you understand this, then you're going to be okay. Okay. The data acquisition can be with a scanner. Now we're going to start talking digital. Can we do this digitally? Yes, I can use intraoral scanner. I can scan a set of models. No problem. Is intraoral scanning accurate? Yes, it's becoming better. Now, there are several studies out here. Dr. LaRusso is from Italy. He's published many, many articles. Dr. Goodacre, Brian Goodacre has published several articles on the accuracy of intraoral scanning for edentulous patients. It's getting better. We still can't load the tissue, and we still can't do border molding with it, but it serves a very important part of digital dentures when you're doing immediates. So, but you can also take this scanner and scan a reference denture on your desktop. As long as you have the right scanning strategy, you're going to be fine. And you're going to capture the teeth, you're going to capture the intaglio and the mucosal surface in a way that gives you a perfect representation in the final. We've got facial analysis that we can use. These are new technologies that can give you eyeballs. If we always want eyeballs to make a denture, that's always nice, and we never had that. And most important, lips. So as a technician or a clinician now, if you're on the screen and you have lips and you got eyeballs, you're home free. Okay, so what does it take to make a good digital denture in the software? As long as you can do model analysis, you can do a class 1, 2, or 3 denture. You have complete tooth control. You've got single arch design capabilities. You can make an immediate denture. You have a good mold library to choose from. You can do gingival contouring. You can export your STLs to be printed or milled, and you can make the digital overdentures. Those are important parts of a software. And I'm just going to submit them. I'm going to run through these slides pretty quick, but all the softwares out there have parity. 10 years ago, I wouldn't say that, but now all the softwares can do all those things I just mentioned. Whether it's, we could mention any of them that bring a record into your design. And here we have a wax rim. We're going to know where our midline is. We do our basic landmarks, our traditional landmarks, and we set teeth to that. So these softwares are all doing that. Some software is a little more challenging than others. Because you've got, if you do exocad or 3Shape, for example, you need to understand those systems. Now you could go to Blue Sky Bio, or you could go to Mertz Baltic Denture System, or many others, for example, and have dedicated softwares just for digital design. And you can go in and download these softwares and practice. You don't have to spend the money on 3Shape or exocad, and you pay for the export file. So it's pretty convenient, but they all work the same. They present teeth in a way that you can manipulate them and move them around. You can have a full setup and put it to manufacturing. Model analysis is important. There's an article I wrote a couple of years ago on model analysis and digital software that talks about the basic principles of understanding the landmarks in the mouth and being able to translate that into the software. So a very good fundamental article that's available to kind of bring you back home in a quick way for some of these important principles. But again, you need to remember these things because you have to plug it into the computer. One of the things we're looking at is a one-click denture. In fact, one of the things I mentioned in that article was how we do a one-click denture or one-click crown now in the software for maybe 3Shape and exocad. You're doing the same thing with dentures, and you can take an existing denture, a copy denture, and it'll copy that. You can extract the teeth, create a boolean into the tissue, create a set of teeth that are going to be able to be bonded into a base just like that. It creates pockets based on the existing denture, and we're getting really close to a one-click denture. So that's part of AI, and it's a great thing. Very, very aesthetic results. This is an immediate denture we did on a patient. It was a 2-appointment denture with a good friend of mine. Single arch, went in with literally no adjustments. And here's another example. One was made with Evotion from a Vivaclar. The other was made 3Shape with carbon using the loose stone print materials. Again, fairly aesthetic materials. Are they as good as a printed or a milled? Probably not, but they're still very, very nice and aesthetic. And this other software examples where you can see where we have the reference in there. So here's a wax up, or it could be an existing denture, and we can just basically follow that. We have all those things that we can copy now. We have a midline and size ledge, all the planes. We have our tooth height, and we can design a digital denture. It's a beautiful thing, and have a really, really, really nice result. What do we got to do to make this slide kind of came apart on me here? I think it goes right there. So immediate dentures. The reason I spent the time explaining the digital denture workflow is because you're going to say now, well, this isn't much different than what I just did. For the immediate denture, it's going to be equally and more important for your patients, is where do I start? I start with a case of terminal dentition that it's hopeless. We know it's going to come out. How do you normally make a record for that? Well, you can make a bite block or you can scan it. And I'm going to show you a couple of deviations here where you can actually separate from this workflow here and add a couple of steps that might make life a little bit easier. One thing I was going to say is that none of these, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, none of this is fully digital. And to say that a denture or a crown is fully digital is kind of fibbing to yourself, because we still got to do some things by hand, okay? And we still bring traditional principles to the table. So is it mostly digital? Yes. Is it all digital? No. So we bring those things like a set of models. If this is how you do it best, if you know how to get an immediate case, make your alginate impressions, pour up the models, get your bite, and set that up and send to the lab, then do it that way. They can scan it. If you want to scan it with an intraoral scanner like we have below here, do an intraoral scan, import those intraoral scans, you're going to get the same effect as you have here. It's just another step. You could even send out for custom trays if you had to, and do a set of wax rims if that's what you want to do. I'm just saying that take those principles that you know best, and they will apply to the digital world. So here we have the teeth now. We've got the same set of models here. Now we're going to remove the teeth digitally. We're going to do that digital extraction. We can do bone modification. We can do alveoplasty. We can push bone in, remove undercuts, and we can even produce a bone reduction guide if that's what you want. And so what we're delivering to the lab is delivering to the doctor now is a bone reduction guide and a denture for the date of extraction. Bring the patient in, pull the teeth, do the bone reduction, put the denture in, send them home. Okay, you can't do that in the real world. We get a setup. If you want to do a try-in, well, you got to skip the try-in step. We manufacture and we go here. So you're still looking at 2 to 3 appointments. Very, very possible. How does that look again? Another example. You have your case, you have your terminal dentition. This is what it's going to look like. You scan that intraorally, and if you want to compare that, so a lot of immediate dentures are cut short on the flange because a lot of the undercuts, and they fit poorly and they reline them anyway at the time of surgery. So what happens is if that's not a concern for you to have a well-fitting border, your gingival roll, if that adaptation is not critical for you, you could probably get away with a digital scan and go straight to digital. But if you want to have a good border, do the border molding, make a final impression, take this scan, and then the lab can register these and bring them together and make them one. And you'll have one file now that has perfect border molding, and you've got the tissue that's been scanned, and now you've got a great digital file. We remove the teeth. So we see the teeth have been removed here. Set the case up based on the original teeth. Now, what did we do? On the initial appointment, we decided whether or not we needed to open the vertical or close the vertical. A lot of these patients are closed. Where are our aesthetics? Determine where your midline, your incisal edge is, your canine position needs to be, and use this as your initial reference. This is what's going to be followed here. Give the lab instructions on what to change if they have to. Okay. And that's what's really important. It's communication. It's the information translating from that try-in appointment to your design. And that comes in here. Well, raise the incisal edge 2 millimeters or open the vertical up 2. That can all be done digitally now. Here's the setup. You're going to build the tissue. We have our tagli, we have our record base fill, and we have a digital denture. Not much different than what we just talked about. The only difference is, what are you doing? Now you're taking your immediate concepts that you understand about how to make a good immediate denture, and you're applying them to the digital world, and you're getting a better result. You're getting the net effect is a positive for you and the patient. If you like to make, if you want to make a record base, you can do the same thing there, and you can scan it. You can get a set of custom trays, make an impression, do the wax rim, make your record that way. That's okay. If that's what you like to do, do it. If you want to do a bone reduction guide, you can do that as well. What a great tool to get that to where you need it, where you don't have to design that ugly gum cover that I talked about earlier, that over contoured ugly denture, because we didn't want to take anything away because we were dealing with tissue on top of stone that we couldn't really see. So now we can cut it back, we can contour it, we can make a denture that's aesthetic as well. Okay, so really quick, the checklist is conventional, impression scan, and conventional interocclusal record, or do a bite block, do a wax rim if you need to, but make sure whatever the record is that you have your vertical, your CR, your midline, incisal edge, horizontal plane, your tooth size, and your gingival height included. Okay. Give you this option. If you want to do both, you can do your digital extraction in the software, your bone modification, do your digital setup. You have your bone reduction guide, if that's an option. You deliver your immediate denture. You have them come back in 6 months for a reline. And you make sure that, I know some of these immediate patients love their denture so much they don't want to ever take it out, but encourage them to come back because it's going to change. And you don't want the occlusion change, because I promise you, after a year, if they don't come in for a reline, something's probably going to change it, whether it's the fit and or the occlusion, because that weird fit will more metamorphose into a bad bite. So you're going to want to correct that. And you can simply do that as a reference denture technique now, as we talked about before. So it's just a beautiful cycle of how you get into the immediate digital denture. So I am going to wrap it up right there. And I'm going to leave these things to be thinking about. Do I want to mill my next digital denture, or am I going to print it? I'm going to leave that up to you as a challenge. We do other presentations, and we can get in touch with Jessica on other presentations about more of the materials that we'll talk about when we have more time. But I'm going to leave that with you as your challenge to, if you haven't done it, to embrace digital dentures. Definitely consider your immediate patients as a bonus add-on to this technology, because you'll benefit them more than you'll benefit yourself. You'll be happy and probably willing to do more of these. So I appreciate your time tonight. If there's any questions, we've got a couple of minutes. I'd be glad to take your questions.